What happens when a CEO goes undercover in his own warehouse, only to be crushed by the way his youngest workers are treated? Logan Sanders stood by the massive window of his corner office, hands jammed into his pockets, staring out at the skyline. His father had built this company from nothing, and when Logan inherited it 3 years ago, he promised himself he'd honor that legacy. But lately, something felt off. Shipments were late. Employee turnover at the warehouses was higher than ever. Customer complaints were piling up. He had 8 warehouses spread across the state, and the one on the west side had been catching his attention for the wrong reasons. He didn't trust the glowing reports he kept getting from the warehouse manager. Everything couldn't be perfect when the numbers said otherwise. Logan needed to see it for himself. He decided to go undercover, something he'd never tried before. Since the warehouses had grown so much over the years, most of the staff had never even seen him in person. They wouldn't recognize the CEO if he walked right past them. He cut his usually neat brown hair a little shorter, grew some rough stubble, and wore a pair of thick glasses. He picked up a plain uniform jeans, steel toe boots, and a gray company t-shirt. At the West Side warehouse, he signed in under the name Luke Simons, pretending to be a new temp worker hired through an agency they often used. The manager barely looked up from his desk when Logan walked in. "Another one, huh? You know where to go." "Ask for Foreman Blake," he muttered, waving him off with a lazy hand. Logan hid a frown and headed to the loading docks. The warehouse was a massive, echoing space filled with rows of towering shelves stacked to the ceiling. Forklifts beeped in the distance. Workers bustled around with clipboards and pallets. He found Foreman Blake easy enough. A thick-set man in his 40s, Blake had a permanent scowl etched into his weathered face. He barked orders at a group of young workers, most of them barely out of high school, who flinched every time he spoke. "You," Blake jabbed a finger at Logan. "You the new guy?" "Yes, sir," Logan said calmly. Blake snorted. "Sir, what are you, a Boy Scout? We don't do that crap here. Keep your head down, do what you're told, and maybe you won't get in the way." Logan nodded, biting back a response. He was here to observe, not to blow his cover. He spent the next few hours stacking boxes, loading trucks, and helping sort inventory. The work was hard but honest. What wasn't honest was how Blake treated the younger workers. "Move faster, idiots!" Blake barked at a pair of nervous teenagers struggling to lift a heavy box. "What they send me the weaklings now?" One of the kids, a skinny boy with shaggy blonde hair, accidentally dropped a box. It wasn't even fragile, but Blake stormed over. "You're worthless, Finn," Blake shouted in his face. "Maybe Mommy should still be packing your lunch," the boy flushed, eyes darting to the ground. Logan clenched his fists, his stomach twisted. He had expected to find some inefficiency, maybe even laziness, but not this bullying. Later, during their short break, Logan sat beside a young woman named Emily Andrews. She looked exhausted, her brown hair tied back in a messy ponytail. "Is it always like this?" Logan asked quietly. Emily gave a quick glance around to make sure Blake wasn't nearby. "Worse some days. He likes picking on the new ones or anyone smaller than him." "Does anyone tell management?" Logan pressed. She laughed bitterly. "Warehouse manager's his buddy, they cover for each other. Complaints just disappear." Logan felt a weight settle in his chest. He saw it clearly now, the cracks in his company that reports never showed. As the day dragged on, he watched Blake belittle, berate, and humiliate the younger workers. Logan noticed another worker, a sturdy young man named Daniel, who quietly helped others when Blake wasn't looking. Daniel whispered encouragements, lifted heavy boxes for struggling kids, and even stood between Blake and a girl he was yelling at. Daniel didn't get paid extra for that. He just did it because it was right. By the end of the shift, Logan's mind was racing. He couldn't go another day pretending he didn't see it. He had to fix this. And tomorrow, he would make sure everyone knew exactly who he was. The next morning, Logan returned to the warehouse before sunrise, the air still damp with early mist. The loading bays buzzed with the low rumble of arriving trucks. He slipped into the same plain uniform, his body sore from yesterday's labor. Every step reminded him of the atmosphere he had witnessed, an environment ruled by fear, not respect. Foreman Blake was already barking orders by the time Logan joined the morning huddle. His voice sliced through the warehouse like a whip. "We got 3 shipments to unload by noon," Blake shouted. "I don't want to see anyone standing around. If you can't keep up, don't bother coming back tomorrow." Workers exchanged glances but stayed silent. Logan noticed Emily rubbing her wrist absently, wincing slightly. Daniel gave her a quick nod of encouragement before turning his attention to the day's tasks. Blake pointed at Logan. "New guy, you're on truck 2. If you screw up, you're cleaning bathrooms for a week." Without waiting for an answer, Blake turned and stomped off. Logan exhaled slowly. He headed toward truck 2, where pallets stacked with heavy boxes waited. Daniel was already there, tightening his gloves. "You ready for this?" Daniel asked, his voice steady. "Yeah," Logan said, lifting the first box onto the pallet jack. "Thanks for yesterday, by the way," Daniel shrugged. "You help where you can, right? Not everyone's out for themselves." They worked in sync, moving boxes quickly without wasting motion. Logan watched how Daniel subtly shielded younger workers from Blake's wrath, taking on extra weight, steering them clear when Blake prowled nearby. Around mid-morning, Logan saw something that made his stomach turn. A young woman named Mia, no older than 19, was struggling to push a heavy cart up a slight ramp. Blake spotted her, marched over, and instead of helping, he kicked the bottom of the cart, causing it to jolt forward and nearly topple. "You call that effort?" Blake sneered. "Maybe you should stick to painting your nails, sweetheart." Mia's face turned crimson. She stumbled back, barely holding back tears. Logan dropped the pallet jack handle and strode over, heart pounding. "Hey," Logan said sharply, his voice cutting through the warehouse noise. Blake turned, eyes narrowing. "What?" Logan kept his tone even. "You don't need to treat people like that." Blake took a step closer, his breath sour with coffee and cigarettes. "You got a problem, new guy?" Before Logan could reply, the warehouse manager, Rick Holloway, sauntered over. A tall man with slicked back hair and a clipboard tucked under his arm, Rick wore a smug expression as he surveyed the scene. "Something wrong here," Rick drawled. Blake immediately straightened. "Just some newbies not pulling their weight." Logan knew every second he stayed undercover allowed more damage to happen. He made a decision. "Yeah," Logan said, tugging off his glasses and pulling the agency badge from his shirt. "There's something wrong. I'm Logan Sanders. I own this company." The silence that followed was absolute. Forklift engines idled. Workers froze mid-step. Rick's face drained of color. Blake's mouth opened, but no words came out. Logan turned to Mia first. "Are you all right?" She nodded numbly, wiping her eyes with the back of her sleeve. Logan shifted his glare to Blake. "You're fired." "Effective immediately." Blake's face twisted. "You can't just—" "I can," Logan cut him off, voice like steel. "And I just did." Blake stood frozen for a moment, then threw his gloves onto the concrete floor with a loud slap and stormed toward the exit without another word. Logan faced Rick, who was still rooted to the spot. "And you, I've seen the reports you sent. You either didn't know what was happening under your nose or you covered it up. Which is it?" Rick sputtered. "It's things get busy. You can't expect me to babysit every little." Logan narrowed his eyes. "I expect you to lead. You're fired too." Gasps rippled through the workers. Rick looked around as if expecting someone to intervene, but nobody moved. He threw his clipboard onto a table and followed Blake out, his footsteps echoing across the cavernous space. Logan turned back to the stunned group of employees. "Everyone, gather around," he said, his voice carrying across the warehouse. They formed a rough circle, uncertainty etched into their faces. "I came here undercover because I needed to see the truth for myself," Logan began. "And what I saw was unacceptable. No one deserves to be bullied or treated like they're less than human. From today forward, this warehouse will be run differently." He paused, letting the words sink in. "I'm bringing in a new management team. People who actually care about the workers and the work. Until then, Daniel will be acting foreman." Daniel blinked, clearly caught off guard. Sir, you've earned it, Logan said firmly. You lead by example, that's what we need. A few workers exchanged relieved glances. Emily smiled for the first time since Logan had arrived. Logan continued, I know a lot of you have been carrying more than your share. That changes now. We'll be adjusting staffing levels to make sure no one's overloaded. And if you ever feel unsafe or disrespected, you'll have a direct line to corporate. No more complaints disappearing. He scanned their faces, seeing hope sparking where fear had lived. Take a 30-minute break, Logan added. Paid, you've earned it. As workers dispersed, buzzing with cautious conversation, Logan pulled Daniel aside. First thing, Logan said, I want a list of the worst bottlenecks. Where we're short-staffed, where equipment's failing. Be honest. Daniel nodded, already switching into problem-solving mode. We need 2 more pallet jacks, and the conveyor belt at Dock 3 jams constantly. It's why we're always behind on shipments. Good, Logan said. Make a full list by end of day. He glanced around, noting how the atmosphere was already shifting. People moved with less tension, shoulders a little looser. Emily approached, hesitating. Thank you, she said quietly. You shouldn't have needed thanking, Logan replied. You deserved respect from the start. As she walked away, Logan's phone buzzed. It was his executive assistant, Sasha. Logan, she said when he answered. We just got a call from Rick. He's threatening to sue for wrongful termination. Logan sighed. Tell legal to be ready and pull his employee file. I want to know if there were any previous complaints. After hanging up, Logan stood in the middle of the warehouse, watching the workers return to their stations. There was still a long road ahead, new hires to make, trust to rebuild, systems to overhaul. But for the first time in a while, he felt something he hadn't felt sitting in his office tower. Connection. He rolled up his sleeves, picked up a clipboard, and got back to work alongside them. By the afternoon, the warehouse's rhythm had shifted, but the cracks couldn't be hidden by goodwill alone. Logan could feel it in the slow, careful way people moved, the hesitations, the constant second-guessing that months of poor leadership had carved into them. Fixing the leadership was only the first step. The deeper wounds would take longer to heal. Logan pulled Daniel aside near the loading docks, where the conveyor belt rattled unevenly every few seconds. Give it to me straight, Logan said, pointing at the malfunctioning machine. How long's this been going on? Daniel wiped his hands on his jeans. 3 months, maybe 4. Maintenance requests kept getting lost. We've been pushing pallets manually half the time. Logan pressed his thumb against his temple. That's probably why we're lagging on fulfillment rates. The system's broken, not the workers. Daniel nodded once, then looked toward the far end of the warehouse where a group of workers struggled to unload a truck that had been sitting for almost an hour. We need more hands, Daniel said. A couple of the temps quit last week after Blake screamed at them on the floor. Logan followed his gaze. All right, I'll have corporate fast-track hiring, no temp agencies this time, full-time trained employees, benefits, stability. Daniel's eyebrows rose, but he said nothing, only giving a short nod before heading back to help. Logan spent the next hour taking detailed notes on equipment failures, bottlenecks, and safety hazards. He spotted a cracked loading bay door that didn't seal properly, letting cold air whip in. A worker named Lewis mentioned they'd been patching it with duct tape when it got bad. Another red flag. Across the floor, Emily stacked boxes onto pallets with a precision that caught Logan's eye. She moved quickly but carefully, checking each label twice. When he approached, she glanced up, cautious. You've got a good system, Logan said. I used to work inventory at my last job, Emily replied, shrugging. Figured if no one else was going to organize it, I might as well. How long have you been here? He asked. 5 months, she said. Feels longer. Logan scribbled a note. Would you be willing to help oversee inventory, part-time supervisory role, temporary for now until we restructure? Emily hesitated, her hand tightening on the pallet jack handle. I'm not sure, I've never been a manager. "You're not managing people," Logan said. "You're managing the process. I'll make sure you get support." After a beat, Emily nodded. "All right, I'll try." As he moved through the warehouse, Logan noticed fatigue setting in. Workers' shoulders sagged, the pace slowed. He couldn't push them harder, not without reinforcements. He called Sasha from a quiet corner at the back of the warehouse. "I need emergency staffing," Logan said when she answered. "Tell HR to prioritize this location. 5 full-time hires minimum. Warehouse experience preferred." "I'll get on it," Sasha replied. "Anything else?" "Yeah," Logan said. "Send a maintenance crew tomorrow morning. This place is falling apart." When he hung up, he found Daniel directing a crew at the receiving docks. Daniel was moving pallets himself, not just shouting orders. That mattered. Logan stepped closer. "How bad's the backlog?" Daniel wiped his forehead. "We're about 2 trucks behind. We can clear one by end of shift if we push." Logan scanned the exhausted faces. "No pushing. We do what we can safely. I'm not burning people out." Daniel didn't argue. He simply adjusted the plan. Later, Logan caught sight of a new face, a wiry, middle-aged man with a clipboard tucked into his armpit, speaking sharply to a group of workers near the racking aisle. Logan didn't recognize him. He moved closer, catching the end of a sentence. "Lazy kids. You think you're owed something just for showing up." The man, who wore a company badge identifying him as supervisor, Brent, glared at the workers like they'd personally offended him. 2 younger employees, no more than 20, stood frozen, red-faced and silent. Logan stepped right up beside Brent before the man noticed him. "Problem here?" Logan asked. Brent barely glanced at him. "Just holding them accountable, bunch of slackers." Logan held out his hand. "Give me your badge." Brent blinked. "What? You heard me," Logan said, voice low but firm. "Badge, now." Brent hesitated, but under the intensity of Logan's stare, he yanked the badge off his lanyard and slapped it into Logan's palm. Logan pocketed it without looking down. "You're done here. Permanently." Brent's mouth twisted. "You firing me for doing my job?" "No," Logan said. "I'm firing you for disrespecting employees, for creating a hostile work environment, and for violating company policy. Get your personal items and leave." Brent muttered something under his breath and stalked off toward the exit. The 2 young workers exchanged looks but said nothing. Logan turned to them. "You're not slackers," he said. "You're doing your jobs under terrible conditions. It's going to get better. You have my word." Neither spoke, but one gave a tiny nod before returning to work. By evening, the warehouse buzzed with a different kind of energy, still strained, but now tinged with cautious optimism. Workers moved with a little more purpose. Conversations sparked up that weren't just about fear of mistakes. Logan gathered the entire crew just before shift end. "I know today wasn't easy," he said, standing atop a wooden pallet so he could be seen. "You've been working under broken systems and broken leadership. That ends now." He let the words hang for a moment. "Tomorrow we're shutting down for half a day, paid. Maintenance teams are coming in. Equipment's getting fixed, safety gear's getting replaced. After that, we're rebuilding operations with your input." Murmurs rippled through the group. "We'll be hiring new full-timers," Logan continued. "Training will be mandatory for everyone. No more tossing people into the deep end and hoping they swim." He scanned the faces in front of him. "No fear, just curiosity. Hope. And if anyone here thinks their job is to tear others down or push people around instead of lifting them up, they're not welcome in this company." Silence. Then, unexpectedly, Daniel spoke up from the crowd. "We're ready to work," he said. "We just needed someone to see us." Logan nodded once. "I see you, and I'm not going anywhere." As the workers broke into smaller groups, gathering their things and talking quietly among themselves, Logan stayed back, watching, taking it all in. It wasn't fixed yet. Not by a long shot. Morale was fragile, trust even more so. Logistics had to be overhauled, hiring practices rewritten, standards enforced rigorously. But for the first time in a long time, Logan didn't feel like a distant figurehead perched in a glass tower. He was here. He had seen it with his own eyes. And now he owed it to them and to his father's legacy to make it right. The next morning, Logan arrived at the warehouse before anyone else. He watched from the main floor as the maintenance crews rolled in with equipment and tool carts. Sparks flew from welding torches as cracked guard rails were repaired, forklift engines were tuned, and the battered conveyor belt was dismantled for a full rebuild. The air smelled of fresh paint and machine oil instead of cold concrete and exhaustion. By 7, the crew began trickling in, blinking at the sight of the maintenance team swarming the place. Logan had held to his word. The warehouse was shut down until noon, paid while repairs were underway. Some workers lingered hesitantly by the break room, unsure of where to go. Logan waved Daniel over, who now wore a reflective vest to signify his interim leadership role. "Let's set up a meeting in the open space by the loading docks," Logan said. "Just a quick talk. They need to hear what's next." Daniel nodded and started gathering people. Logan noticed how the workers moved differently now, still cautious, but no longer bracing for a blow. When everyone had assembled, Logan climbed onto a wooden pallet again, clipboard in hand. "First off," he began, voice clear, "thank you for sticking through yesterday. I know it wasn't easy." There was a ripple of shifting feet and adjusting of baseball caps. "We're rebuilding this warehouse the right way," Logan continued. "That means better equipment, better staffing, and better leadership. Daniel and Emily will help oversee day-to-day operations for now. They've proven they know what this place needs." He caught Emily's startled look in the crowd and gave her a small nod. She squared her shoulders slightly, accepting the responsibility without protest. "We also have a corporate HR rep arriving this afternoon," Logan said. "They will be taking private feedback sessions. If you have something to say, good or bad, you'll have a safe place to say it." A few heads nodded. Logan folded his arms. "Now, we can't fix everything overnight. I won't lie to you. Staffing up is going to take a few weeks. Equipment won't all be perfect by tomorrow, but we'll keep communicating. No more rumors, no more guessing." Daniel raised his hand slightly. Logan gestured for him to speak. "We could use a training session," Daniel said. "A real one. A lot of people never got proper safety training." Logan made a note. "Agreed. I'll have a certified trainer here within 72 hours. He glanced at the maintenance crews who were reassembling the conveyor belt. "Until noon, enjoy the downtime. Walk the floor if you want, see what's changing. At noon, we'll do a light shift, nothing crazy. Just enough to keep shipments moving." As the meeting dispersed, Logan stepped down and found Emily checking a clipboard near the newly repaired loading dock doors. "How are you feeling about the new role?" Logan asked. "I'm nervous," Emily admitted, adjusting her ponytail. "But I want to help." "You already are," Logan said. "Start by doing inventory audits. I want to know exactly what's on these shelves." She nodded and moved off with the quiet efficiency he'd come to expect from her. Near the receiving area, Logan found Lewis inspecting the newly installed dock seals. The young man looked up, surprised. "These actually work now," Lewis said, running a hand along the tight rubber seams. "They should have been fixed months ago," Logan replied. "You shouldn't have to patch things with duct tape." Lewis gave a small, genuine laugh. "Feels like someone's finally listening." "Because I am," Logan said simply. A shout from the far end of the warehouse caught his attention. A maintenance worker was waving him over. Logan jogged across the floor, boots thudding against the concrete. "Found something you need to see," the worker said, leading him to a locked storage room near the supervisor's old office. He jimmied the door open with a master key. Inside, Logan's stomach turned. It was a stockpile of broken equipment, bad pallet jacks, cracked helmets, torn glove stuff that should have been replaced. Instead, it had been hidden away. On a desk, he found a clipboard with maintenance requests marked closed but clearly never fulfilled. Logan's jaw tightened. They hadn't just been incompetent. They had been actively hiding problems. He snapped pictures of everything. This would be evidence for HR and legal. By noon, the maintenance crews wrapped up their work. The conveyor belt hummed smoothly now, The dock doors sealed tight against the outside air, and the warehouse lights shone brighter than before. The workers gathered again, this time ready to tackle the afternoon shift. Logan kept it light, focusing on simple tasks, sorting, basic pallet transfers, and prepping outgoing orders. He worked alongside them, helping Daniel organize the dock lanes and carrying boxes himself. Sweat prickled at the back of his neck under the fluorescent lights, but he didn't mind. He saw the way workers glanced at him, not with fear but with growing trust. While stacking boxes, Logan found himself next to Mia, the young woman Blake had humiliated 2 days earlier. "You doing all right?" Logan asked quietly. She nodded, adjusting her grip on a box. "Better." "It's different now." Logan handed her a shipping label. "If you ever feel like something's wrong, you come to me or Daniel. No waiting, no getting brushed off." Mia smiled, a small but real one. "Thanks." As the shift wore on, Logan noticed the natural leaders emerging. Lewis kept an eye on safety practices. Emily caught a mislabeled pallet before it went out the door. Daniel jumped in without hesitation when a truck driver misread the dock assignment. By 6 o'clock, they had cleared 2 shipments, ahead of Logan's cautious target. He called it a day, insisting everyone head home to rest. After the workers left, Logan sat at the supervisor's old desk, now stripped bare, and pulled out his notebook. He wrote out a list. Hire 5 full-time warehouse associates, certified safety training scheduled, install permanent HR feedback systems at all warehouses, implement mandatory quarterly warehouse audits, leadership retraining program for all managers. His pen paused. One more item. Stay connected. No more running the company from a distance. He closed the notebook. As he locked up the warehouse for the night, Logan took one last look around. The place still smelled of machine oil and fresh paint, but now it also carried something else: hope. He knew the road ahead wasn't going to be easy. But for the first time in a long while, he was exactly where he needed to be, and he wasn't leaving the hard work to someone else ever again.